Hi, Karen. How are you?
I'm well, thanks, Tash. Thanks for inviting me on for a chat.
No, thank you for jumping on and agreeing to talk to us about everything about sleep, because your business is Sleep Dream Baby. And I've come across you obviously through Instagram, and it's so lovely to put a face to your business, and get to virtually meet you. Yeah, so sleep to me is obviously a big thing. Those of my followers that know me, my daughter, who is 6 years old now, she, oh man, I was pregnant with my son, and I had to take her to Tresillian because she was frequently waking up at night, and I was pregnant, and I'm like, how am I going to do this? So it was like one of those 3 nights, 4 days at Tresillian, and you just like, and I was the pregnant one, and everyone's looking at you going, oh my gosh, you've got to get this sorted because your hands are going to be so full. And my kids are 15 months apart, so it was like having two babies. So as soon as I came up with and saw you, I was like, there's got to be more mums out there just like me that are either going through this or need as much advice, if they're pregnant now, to have the right techniques in place from the beginning, so they don't make the mistakes that I might have made.
I'm sure there's lots of mums and parents out there that can relate to that. I mean, my two are 19 months apart, so I'm almost as close as you, but it's exhausting.
Oh man, and it's there's the co-sleep, and my daughter also does have epilepsy, which is she's got a type of epilepsy where she has seizures in her sleep, so it's obviously then affected. I didn't know that at the time back then, she didn't have it, but as she got older, she developed it, and then that's obviously then affected what we do now for sleep. And it's probably made co-sleeping and things like that a lot more normal for my family. I know a lot of people don't co-sleep, but yeah, you can tell me your thoughts about that down the track. But so obviously I'm excited. So for our followers listening now, I've obviously sent some questions to Karen, and she is going to, we're going to pick her brain a little bit and she's going to fill us in. So first up, maybe just tell me what your business is and what a sleep consultant does, because
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So my business is Sleep and Dream Babies, and so that's my own personal business, and I'm an infant and child sleep consultant. So I work with children from 4 weeks up until 4 years, till just before their 5th birthday, basically. So that's quite a wide range of children that I work with. And I say children, I work with children and the families. It's more the parents than the child.
That's the thing. It's the one thing I thought of. Yeah, at Tresillian is like the whole family, and even the in-laws, and everybody needs to get involved in the techniques that you learn. Otherwise, it's so hard to do what the expert says.
Yeah, it's really helpful when the whole family's on board. It makes life so much easier and more achievable. So so I work with all sorts of sleep issues. There's a lot of similar ones out there, but everyone's a little bit different in what their struggles are, and everyone has different goals. But I usually work one-on-one with the families, and was doing home visits prior to COVID, but that'll be up and running again soon. So, and I do phone, Zoom, online programs for families as well. So helping to achieve their sleep goals.
No, that sounds so good. And it was good, at least with lockdown, you could still do things virtually. I guess it didn't shut you out completely, but it's obviously not the same thing as hearing the cries and sort of being there, and more of that support physically if you were there, but good that you still adjusted. So my next question is, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as new mums. So what are your 5 sleep tips for newborns?
So I could give you hundreds of sleep tips. So I've tried to narrow it down to...
I know, we don't have too long. I have the unpaid Zoom versions.
So I've narrowed it down to 5 things that I feel are really important for when you've got a newborn. And so you first bring in this newborn baby home. These are the 5 things that I think you should really look at. And the one that you talked about then, saying we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, that's my biggest first thing to think about and to look at is realistic expectations. So really knowing preparing yourself as much as you can for what you might be in store for when you bring home a newborn, and knowing that it's an absolute blessing, wonderful experience to have a baby, and we're all so excited, but it's also really, really tough. So super demanding. Your life is basically turned upside down when you have your first baby, and you've got no idea what's about to happen. So
I'm yet to find that parenting book that, you know, it makes us all just all knowing, but no, it hasn't.
Yeah,
no one's wrote that yet.
No. And people can tell you, but it's still nothing like
it's not the same, right? It's totally not the same. And you get so much unwanted advice, and then it's like, it just puts more pressure on you because you're thinking, oh, it's not working. And then which one do I listen to? And so that's a very good point. Just try and take that pressure off and know that I guess a lot of people are going through that.
Yeah. And if you've got some sort of idea on what is normal for a newborn, it might just help you to cope with the whole situation better. So if you know that it's perfectly normal for a newborn baby to 1, cry a lot, 2, sleep a lot, 3, poo a lot, then you pretty much got it covered.
That's right.
Knowing that you're going to be awake a lot during the night, and that your whole sleep schedule is going to be sort of turned upside down. Sleep deprivation is really real with having a newborn. So, and it's a massive shock to anyone.
And to the relationship as well, because that's, you know, a lot of the time one partner is still working or both are still working, and that sleep deprivation can cause a lot of heartache for the couple and for the new family. So
it's definitely not an easy thing to live with. So I always say to new parents, be prepared to be tired, but go easy on yourself. So things like housework, you know, looking glamorous, anything that, you know, that's really not important, you've just got to push to the side. And it's all about, in those early days, just you getting to know your new baby and learning, you know, their signs, and learning about their little new characters and what's going to work for you as a family. So it's be prepared as you can, but just knowing that life is very different, I think is a good start.
That's good.
Some other things I think are really important is that people get really obsessed with when their new baby comes home is with sleep, and sleep is really, really important. And the reason that I work with babies from 4 weeks onwards is it's those first 3 weeks when you come home, that's all about learning about feeding. So we don't work with anyone who's in those first 3 weeks, because it's all about establishing those feeds. So whether it's bottle or breast, doesn't matter. In my opinion, fed's best. But
I agree.
It's just getting your little routine going with the feeds, and making sure your baby's having some nice wet nappies, pooey nappies, and steadily gaining weight. It's not about how much they weigh per se, but it's about that steady weight gain. So they're the things that you sort of, that's your initial thing to start off with. And then from that point onwards, then we can start to look at things like sleep and other things like that. So that's when some of my other tips would be. Some really good things for newborns are, there's a few myths around about holding a baby too much, too many cuddles can spoil them.
That is
things like that.
What are your thoughts on that? Because that is a big touch point, and people go, oh my God, and you did it because you held them too much, and then it's like, then you feel guilty on top of the pressure because what did I do different? But then tell me what's the right?
No, you can't spoil a newborn baby. So cuddles and holding them and all that skin on skin contact is really important when they're a newborn. Definitely there is a turning point there where you need to try and to, eventually not be carrying them the whole time and cuddling them and stuff like that. But in the early days, you can't overfeed them. like breastfeeding. I always say feed on demand.
Yeah.
That'll vary. You might have a rough routine in your head of feeding a baby every 3 hours, a newborn baby, but sometimes it'll be every 2 hours, every 1.5 hours.
And that's the hard part. That 3 hours sort of doesn't happen until a little bit later, not right in the beginning.
Yeah.
Definitely, it's hard to. And some babies feed for a short amount of time, and some take a longer amount of time, and especially on the breast, it's hard to work that out.
And it's knowing that everyone's different, even one child to another. Your two are probably quite different as well. So
massive difference. Like chalk and cheese.
And your friends' babies and that, you've got to understand that you can't compare your babies as well. So that's a tricky thing. So someone with a 3-week-old baby might look at a 10-week-old baby and go, but they're doing this, they're sleeping for 6 hours, and but there's such a massive change for newborns. We took the first 3 months, so it's not 12 weeks of age, and in that period of time so many changes and developments happen that there's a massive difference between a 3-week-old and a 10-week-old or a 12-week-old. So when you look around or you go to a mother's group and you start chatting to people and they say my baby this, you just got to understand that there's big differences, and lots of change happening in those first 3 months. It's a really, it's a big time of change.
Yeah, and I think everyone sort of gets excited about talking about their own kid, and then they don't realise that maybe what they're saying sometimes could be impacting the other person, that the other new mum that they're talking to, because then they're going to put more pressure or compare. So I think it's a good rule, just sort of take everything with a grain of salt and try not to be like competitive in those sort of environments.
Yeah. And so we're doing lots of cuddling with our newborns, lots of hands-on settling. You might be putting them down in their bassinets or their cots and that, but you're still doing lots of touch and lots of reassurance for a newborn to settle them. Sucking is a really good thing. So newborn babies love to suck. So whether it's a breast, bottle, dummy, their own thumb, whatever it is, sucking's a really calming, soothing thing. So if you've got a really restless and upset newborn, so sucking's really, really important for them. So don't be afraid to use whatever you've got in terms of helping soothe a newborn. So sucking's really good. Another thing that's really good is the swaddling. So I really love nowadays how there's so many amazing swaddles on the market. They're just fantastic. My kids were old school. They were swaddled the traditional way, which wasn't always easy, but I love some of the products that are out now. So newborn babies are born with that startle or morrow reflex. Basically means that when they're lying down, they feel like that they're falling backwards. And that's why they instinctively flail their arms out.
They do that thing,
and wake themselves up. It's because they actually have the feeling of falling backwards, which is quite horrible, really.
If you think of it like that. But I didn't realise that that's what was going on there. Okay,
so that's the morrow reflex. So it can hang around till about 3 to 5 months, usually 3 or 4 months, that babies still could have this startle reflex, and it does gradually wean off. It's usually strongest in the first 3 months.
Okay.
So swaddling for that, and it doesn't suit every baby, but most babies, just giving them that security, nice firm wrap around their arms and chest is what helps them not have that feeling of falling backwards, making them flail. So with swaddling, you should always, no matter what swaddle you choose, whether you do a traditional wrap or whatever, it's always nice and firm around the chest and the arms, but you always make it loose around the legs and the hips. So we don't want to have any hip dysplasia. So nice room for them to kick their legs and everything still. So in terms of sleep and settling, if you've got a really restless newborn, I think swaddles are, they're really effective and really calming. Once your baby starts to be able to roll, that's when we wean them out off of swaddle. The new guidelines from SIDS and the AAP are to stop swaddling your child at around 9 weeks, which is super early because you've still actually got the reflex happening.
Yeah.
That is because they're frightened that if you've got a swaddled baby and they roll, they can't get themselves back,
okay,
like that. So basically what you'd be doing is looking for signs that your baby is showing any signs that they're going to roll.
Yeah.
And then when you start to notice that, you would start to unswaddle them. And you can do that one step at a time, taking one arm out and then the other, and slowly. And during that time, sometimes you might find that your little newborn has a little bit of disrupted sleep because they're not used to it.
Yeah.
So
that's always like when you start to do those things, you're like, okay, prepare yourself. I'm going to have not the best sleep for the next few nights.
Yeah, exactly. So if you can do it gradually, is really good. But yeah, I do love a swaddle. So we've got lots of cuddles, we've got dummies, we've got swaddling. We're being really realistic with our expectations. So things like knowing that a baby's got a really tiny stomach and they need regular feeds, which means feeding throughout the night, and knowing that they're not going to instantly sleep through. It's just having those thoughts in your head that it's perfectly normal for them to wake up through the night, that they do need these feeds. It's only for a short amount of time, but just knowing that that's going to happen, I think is really important.
Yeah.
And my last big tip for a newborn is one that not everybody knows. Everybody knows about cuddles and dummies and things like that, but is side lying. So when your newborn's really upset, you might find that whenever you tilt them on the side, and that's what dads are often really good at this. Yeah. You might find dads turn a baby onto their side and they do like a football hold. Yeah. And they actually have their stomachs sort of hanging sideways across their chests. And it's really calming lying on your side. And if you've got a baby in a bassinet as well, yes, we definitely have to put them flat on their backs to sleep. We have to follow safe sleep practices, so we always want to do that. But if they're crying and really upset, if you just turn them gently to their side to give them a bit of a pat, you'll find that turns on this, it's almost just like a calming button that can really help soothe and settle them.
Yeah, so, and it's better than obviously taking them fully out and then starting the process all over again, which then a lot of mums start to do, and then you go, oh my gosh, this is going to take an hour. But yeah, try that first and then see if that works before having to fully take them out of the bed.
So nice little, and then once they're nice and settled, you can gradually roll them back down onto their backs, ready for sleep.
Tip. And then do you recommend following a routine, and at what age should you introduce a routine?
I do like routines. I think routines can be really helpful. Always say flexible routine. So it doesn't have to be a rigid and a really structured routine. And it really depends on your personality as well and what works for you as a family. So having a flexible guide is always handy. It just helps with predicting, you can plan your day, when you can go out for coffee or you can go and grab a bit of lunch because you know what's going to happen. So if you've got a little bit of a rough idea what's happening, that's really good. And you can start that from as young as about 6 to 8 weeks, just following a flexible sort of guideline. And when they're really young, the way to do that is to follow like awake times. So you're not going to have a set structure that this is every nap's going to happen at 9 and 12 and 3, because it's not. They're going to wake up at all different times. So just to give yourself that little bit of flexibility, you learn awake times, and a newborn baby has very little awake time. They literally just long enough to have a nice feed and a cuddle, change the nappy, and then it's literally time to go back again.
Yeah, I think that's a mistake that a lot of mums make. They think, or parents make, and they keep bubs up for too long, and then you've got that overtired factor kick in, and then it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, people are really shocked how little time it's awake a newborn would actually spend. It's very short, especially in the mornings. You might have a little bit of increased awake time in the evenings. And that's fairly normal as well, but pretty much throughout the beginning of the day and most of the day, in those first, especially 3 weeks to 6 weeks.
Okay.
It's about an hour and a quarter, literally, and that includes everything: feeding, changing, fitting it all in. So a little bit of playtime, a little bit of kicking on the floor, a little bit of tummy time. And then it's time to prepare for sleep again. So it's short, but it just helps you if you don't have to clock watch to the absolute minute and get stressed. Oh my goodness, I'm not going to get there at 1:05 and it hasn't happened. But be kind to yourself.
Mindful of how long they are awake for.
And I think just it helps, takes the stress off. As they get older, a routine is good because, as I said, it helps you plan your day, helps you feel a little bit more in control of what's going to happen. But if it's too rigid, you can actually put a lot of stress on yourself. So it's just keeping that flexibility going.
I think I definitely had that problem. My husband was a stickler for the routine, and then it was like, then I would get anxious about it, and then because it wasn't to the time, and he was like, you get it to the time. I was like, that's not going to happen. and it's sort of like, and I'm a bit more of a relaxed, easygoing type of person. So to try and change that about myself made me more anxious, I guess.
Too stressful. And look, it suits some people more than others. And someone might really cope well with a little bit of a stricter routine, and someone might just need a little bit more flexibility.
But I do definitely agree that you do have to have an idea, and there's got to be something there in place. You can't just go, whatever you want, go to sleep now, go to eat now. There's got to be some structure, definitely.
Otherwise they'll get you have a very cranky, overtired baby.
And then everyone feels like, oh my gosh, why did we do that to ourselves? Why did we go out that night? So when this is the question, so when is it okay to cut out day naps?
So as babies change, basically over time, we start off when they're newborns, they might nap 4 times a day. That's perfectly normal. Then we would sort of start to move towards having 3 naps a day. Then they'll cut down to 2. Then you're on your last nap of your day, which mums will love to cling on to forever.
It's like, don't go. I know I think that was me, definitely. I was like, no, I'm not ready. I need that 1 hour to myself.
That lovely break. So the biggest indicator is if your child, and look, because everyone's different, they're different activity levels. If you've got a really active baby, they might need their sleep a little bit longer, or if you've got a different sort of more placid child who's not sort of using as much energy, then they might not need it for as long. But as a general rule, by around about 2.5, 3 years of age, you'd be phasing out your naps altogether. But really, an indication of when a good time to cut naps out altogether would be, is your child starting to wake up through the night and suddenly be awake for an hour at a time through the night? Are they struggling to go to bed at bedtime? So they're basically just not tired enough because they've slept an hour and a half or 2 hours during the day. You'd want to be cutting down the length of their naps as they get older as well. You can't have 2 hours in the middle of the day forever. It definitely needs to cut down. But if you're getting wakes during the night, if you're having trouble with bedtime, they're just really not tired and not going to sleep, and next minute it's 10 p.m, clearly they shouldn't be having that day nap. So
no, that's definitely good points there. So the next question is, when do you transition your toddler from a cot to a bed?
My favorites, this one. My biggest tip is don't do it too soon.
Okay.
Because if you do, all of a sudden you transfer your 18-month or your 22-month-old out, and you think, oh, I'm excited, I'll buy them a big bed, and you go shopping and it's great, and you stick them in the big bed, and then 2 weeks they're beautiful, they're sleeping, and then all of a sudden that's it, they're up, they're out, and they're causing you havoc every night, and you think, what have I done?
We had a baby that slept, and now what?
Yeah. So really,
like it's like having a newborn again.
If your baby isn't climbing out of the cot where they can fall, so that's another really important thing to look at. So if they're climbing out constantly and it's basically dangerous, that's when you have to move them to a big bed.
Okay.
So that's a really important thing to look at, is it safe for them to stay in the cot? So if they're not climbing out and it's safe and they fit in that cot, I would definitely keep them there till at least 2.5 to 3 years.
Okay.
So 2-year-olds, 18-month-olds just don't have the same concept as a 2.5 to 3-year-old. And look, and that's, I'll give you a big 6-month sort of window there, because it's really quite different. So it does depend on the child as well. But the concept of telling them to stay in the bed, they don't have that impulse control when they're just turned 2. It's just too tempting, and they just do want to get out because they can.
Yeah. I've got this new power now. I can just run the household. I've got everyone up. Good point. So they can't quite grasp the concept yet. So we are basically just going to put our head in the sand, just trying to get through to them and thinking, come on, why don't you get it? That's why they don't get it.
No, they just have these strong impulse to do it, and it's not realistic to expect them to be able to stay in a bed when they're so young. If they're climbing out and you've got no choice, then that's a step you can do. I would always put a bed rail up if you're worried about them rolling out of bed. And then what you can do as another option, so you've got a just turned 2-year-old who's climbing out and you're really frightened they're going to fall. So you move them to a big bed, put a bed rail up, but then you could put a baby gate on the door of the bedroom, and basically that turns the whole room into a cot.
So they're not coming all the way out, and
not coming all the way out. But if you do find that you get a little one that likes to keep sneaking out of a night, it's hard sometimes to catch them at the right time. So they're heading out the door. A little tip I have is to put a bell at the top of the door. And you've got the door nearly cut and they start to move out towards, and you hear the bell ring. The best thing to do is to nip them in the sort of pass and get to them as soon as you can, so you can direct them back to your bed.
Because otherwise they're jumped in, and then how do you get them out, and then you're tired, or the process just takes too long, and then okay, good. I like the bell. The bell idea is good. I wish I knew that back then.
And look, having said all that, it's only if you don't want them getting out of bed all night long. If you're happy for them to get out of bed and climb into bed with you, absolutely. If you go back to sleep in your sleep, not a problem. Anything I say to anyone is always only if it doesn't work for you. If it doesn't work for you, that's when it's a problem. If it works for you, fantastic. Go for it.
And that's, you know what, I think that's amazing, because I think we always think, oh, we have to do it this way, but no, you don't have to do it anyway. You can, as long as everybody's getting sleep and everybody's comfortable with whatever the habit that's happened is, and I think that's a really good way to think about it.
That's my important thing for people to know, that if you don't need me as a sleep consultant, fantastic, because that means you're happy and it works for you. But if you're exhausted, if you can't concentrate, if you're constantly feeling tired, or you're unwell, or your family's unwell and everybody's unhappy, then you've got a problem. It's not working for you. That's when I'm absolutely happy to come in and help. So it's all about what works for you.
No, that's exactly, because obviously people are going to be coming to you when it's whatever's going on and I can't cope and can't fix it on your own, and it does get like that. That's why I went to Tresillian, because it was you get too far into the rabbit hole, and then you start to go look at Google and the rest of it and try and figure it out, and it's very hard to try and implement things like that you read, and then you get even more confused. And I think sometimes it's definitely just the right idea is get the expert and get that help, so that you get the advice and tailored advice to your family and your child, not whatever's the general census that's being put on Google.
Yeah, it definitely helps to have something that's individual to your circumstances, because everyone is really different, and every family I work with is different. Some things might be similar,
Yeah.
absolutely, but they've all got their own little things that they need to deal with, and that's why, yeah, we work one-on-one with families.
Yeah. So since you've got so much knowledge, how would if a parent is obviously going through this and they need help, how would they go about booking a sleep consultant, and what would that involve?
So basically, I mean, you find most sleep consultants, you might get a recommendation from a friend or a family member, or you can look them up or see if there's anyone local to you. For me, I've got a website, Facebook page, and Instagram. And what I would do if you came to me is we'd have a chat first on the phone. I basically find out what's been happening, what your issues are, what your goals are, what you expect, and then I'll tell you, yes, I can help you, or no, I can't, or this is what I think you should need to do. You might need a visit to a doctor or an ENT, because it could be, something else like that. So we definitely chat through all those things first, and then when we work out that yes, I can help you, I get them to do a questionnaire, which is quite a detailed sort of feedback form that gives me a really good idea about what's happening, and then you book a package that suits you. So it might be a phone email package, which is really good for some people. Some people don't want somebody coming into their house. It works for them. Or you might say, yep, come to me. Or you might just go, I've just got a little problem, I'm just going to book a phone call. So you might work out what package suits you. And then if we're working one-on-one together, it might be for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, then we'd just do that. And we do daily communication. So I'm basically finding out everything that's going on every day, and then I'm there to help you and say, okay, I can see this, how about we do this? Let's change that. And so that's the good thing about working with a sleep consultant, is it's great. I write you a personalized plan to follow, but then you've got that follow-up support. So when you're struggling or you're feeling like it's too hard, I'm supporting you and guiding you.
The motivation, someone just to say, no, you're doing it right, the encouragement along the way, because that's the thing. You don't want to commit to starting something and then, it gets too hard, and then you give up and then the problem's still there. So just to have that someone guiding with you, and you're doing it good, and don't worry, this is normal, and we can try and do this instead. It's a huge asset to a mum.
Especially if you're on your own, doing things, in life's very busy for everyone around. It's often hard to get that full support. Some people just don't have it. They might not have family or friends or anyone that can rely on. So it's helpful to have that little bit of support and guidance.
Or people differ as well in their ways, like especially like you can be really close to your parents or your in-laws, but what they did in the past and what worked for them is different to what's going to work for you. And sometimes you're like, well, that doesn't work, or in other cases as well, like my in-laws, they didn't have any problems with, and my mum, myself and my husband slept really good, so they couldn't help when my kids weren't sleeping. They were like, well, I don't know. And I was like, hey, you're not good for nothing. So it's true, sometimes you just need to outsource that support.
So I'm also going to say to all your Mummas Wear family out there that if they would like any help and they needed a chat anytime, I always do a free phone chat, so they're welcome to get in touch. And if any of your Mummas Wear people would like to book anything with me, I'm offering a 10% discount to all the Mummas Wear family.
Beautiful. That's so there you go, mums. Get on that. If you're struggling, you've got her. Use Karen, okay? But I think that's great. Thank you so much for that. I think that will help a lot of people. So they just need to, whenever they call you, just say that they've watched this video or they followed Mummas Wear, and then you can give them the 10%. That's awesome. Thank you so much for hooking them up. Well, thanks so much, Karen. It's so nice to meet you and just get that feel that there is this service out there, and we're not on our own. Oops, I pressed a button. We're not on our own, and if we need the help, we know where to go.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, be more than happy to help anyone. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It was lovely to meet you. Thanks for having me, Tash.
Awesome. Bye. I'll let you go.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Karen.
Bye.